Yo, what's going on, guys? Back with another video. I know it's been a while, switching it up a little bit with this concept. I wanted to kind of narrate the whole process of what I'm doing here. I'm building this podcast bar top for a client of mine. So he loves sports, he loves music, and he loves cars, trucks, anything that has wheels basically. So that being said, the inspiration that I had, you guys will kind of see later on as I'm building this whole thing. The reasons why I chose what I chose. More or less, I just wanted you guys to see how I did it. It was such a fun project, and I wanted to bring it to you guys just to let y'all see what I did. I'm gonna come back in and kind of chime in and talk about the whole process of what I did. Cut back to me, cut back to the video. But either way, I hope you guys enjoy. Appreciate it again. Drop a comment down below if you guys actually want to see more of these videos, and give me just some feedback on what y'all think about this. I really enjoyed building this, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. So let's go. If I have any Ford gurus that are familiar with older truck styles, I want you guys to chime in. Let me know what the year of this truck is. I don't remember it off the VIN because me and Lewis, we picked this up at the junkyard and we actually took it apart off the truck itself, and man, these bolts were so rusted. Like, it was annoying. Like, we could have been in and out in probably, I don't know, like 15 minutes had we brought like a plasma cutter and like WD-40 and just everything. But let me know if you guys are familiar with the front end style and drop a comment down below. But regardless, this is the condition of it. This is kind of how it looks. And before I start taking it apart, I want you guys to see I'm using a black Rust-Oleum high performance enamel. And then, of course, Rust-Oleum metallic finish for the front of the grill itself. Of course, Ryobi grinder. You can never go wrong with the 4-inch disc. It'll do damage. And this mount that you see here, it's got to go. I don't need that. For what I'm doing, it's got to go. So let's cut it off. But also double check before you guys start spinning that grinder wheel, because I've had instances where I thought I was cutting the right part and it ended up being like the other part that I did not want to cut off. So just keep that in mind. Cool, now that that's gone, I want you guys to see that I took apart the top portion, sanded it down, and I'm just applying this black enamel to it to bring it back to life. And the reason why I actually chose black instead of keeping the traditional blue that it came in, because the owner and the client that I have, he drives a badass lifted black F250, so it just made sense to go with black. Alright, so now we're on to the main portion of the grill itself, the bread and butter, I would say, that really gives it that old school look that I was looking for. You know, don't come for me in the comments by any means by my makeshift spray booth. All right, like, you know, we're out here, we're making it work. Okay, like let's just be real. And you know, if I was doing this full time, I probably would invest in a Harbor Freight, like, you know, those little pop-up tents that I can isolate myself with. So something that I might consider. We'll see, because I really enjoyed this project and it was time consuming, but this is kind of the final product that you guys see here of what I have so far. And I actually went to O'Reilly and bought 2 brand new headlights for, I think they were about 16 a piece. And you know, they're traditional 7-inch headlights you could probably get anywhere. Also, I realized that the bumper itself needed to be kind of like brought back to life because it was so oxidated from just sitting out in the yard for however long, or you know, its whole life. I went with this turtle wax, like metal polisher that you guys are going to see here, and I think it turned out really great. Shout out Lewis, appreciate it again on the hookup on that, so that way I didn't have to go spend more money. We're jumping into the next day here. So this is kind of just me showing the structure being built. So the reason why I went with this design itself was the client's room that he wants to actually store this in and put it to do his podcast is upstairs. So me and my dad were kind of devising and, you know, sketching out ideas for the blueprints on it. And he suggested that I build it into 3 separate parts. So the side walls that you'll see coming up are actually going to be able to detach from the front face where the grill itself will be bolted to. So that way I can take off the 2 side walls and take off the front and carry those all separately upstairs and then just reconnect them all back together once I get into the correct room. And you guys will see later in the video that it actually really helped. And the physical day that we moved the whole countertop was such a breeze. Just double check, and what I always do is I always pin nail at least 3 and then pre-drill and anchor with 2 drywall screws. So it would be like 2.5 inch drywall screws, I believe that's okay. So next step you guys are gonna see will be me actually applying this wood. I believe it was a 1x6 by 8 feet long piece that I cut down into, man, I can't remember what sizes those were. I didn't mark it in my mind. I didn't mark it anywhere, so regardless, I believe I got 4 pieces off of that. So I think these side pieces were like 24 inches. I can't remember exactly, but somebody do the math. I don't feel like doing it right now. Regardless, the cool thing about this specific wood that I chose is it's already textured and it has the stain that I liked. So I'm like, well, what the heck, why not use this? It might have cost a little bit more than obviously just buying some basic wood and then applying stain and then trying to add texture. You know, you kind of factor in your time and your money versus just buying a product that's already like ready to go for you. So why not? That was my thinking. And of course, you know, this is kind of the first project that I've done that would be not necessarily this labor intensive, but just like time consuming, trying to plan to figure out what exactly would work, because there aren't any blueprints on how to build something like this that I found. So it was just like referencing photos off of Pinterest and stuff like that, as you guys might notice. So far it's turning out pretty great. I think you guys are going to be impressed with the quality once you start seeing the transformation here. And here goes a clip of the front end that I just kind of like started piecing together. You can see that I have 4 boards so far. I actually had to run to Home Depot to get 1 more. I was like so annoyed that I didn't calculate for that one, but sometimes that's what you gotta do. But I'm also very lucky that I live less than 5 minutes from a Home Depot, so. So to jump into this next part right here, you'll see that the bumper actually kind of has like a point that like, it has a point that it went up to on both sides. I already banged in the left side where the R is on the license plate. I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing before I started filming this, but this was the method that I use. As you can see, that I'm basically beating the hell out of it with the sledgehammer. So that's that. But after a couple whacks and you know, 30-second breaks in between, I was able to get it flattened out to where I liked it. And that is that's Sadie girl right there in the back. She's a brown lab that I have. You probably see her in a couple of my photos. So this is kind of just a little layout that I have so far. I always like doing this just to make sure that I'm making progress and it's actually turning out the way that I envision it. And it helps me kind of figure out the next step of what I need to tackle, which is obviously the Ford symbols, and that'll be next. I actually got them off of eBay. I believe I paid $20 for them. As you can see here, I also use brand new hardware because the ones that came with the grill were just so rusted. I literally sawzawed and grinded them off, and these brand new bolts from Home Depot obviously work perfect. So alright, so also I got these headlight bezels off of eBay as well. These were kind of pricey. I believe I paid like $50 for them. I don't know if that's like normal, it just felt kind of pricey, but I don't know. I guess it's, you know, old truck parts, they aren't too easily to come by. Either way, I painted them with that metallic finish that you guys saw earlier, the Rust-Oleum that I had, to kind of match this whole front grille as well, just to make sure everything looked even and factory. For this next tip, guys, super important. This is one thing that my dad always told me as well. He got on my ass before. The size of the material that you're cutting, you want to just adjust your saw blade to be like barely above it. maybe like less than 1/4 of an inch, because if you're sending that piece through and for some reason it gets caught and it just like slips, takes your hand with it, you know, you're only gonna just maybe get a bad cut that might need a couple stitches here and there. But back into it. I'm grinding off these other tabs here because it won't allow the grill to lay flat against the front face that I was picturing, so that's the reason why they gotta go. Definitely wear a face mask, guys. Like, once again, safety, y'all. Safety is such a, you know, you're working with these power tools, things happen, pieces fly, you never know. This is a Harbor Freight face mask. It was like $13, so just get you one, you know. And next thing here is to jump into the actual bumper itself. The bumper had to be cut. As much as I like the chrome and, you know, the authentic bumper itself, you know, hey, I cut into my Datsun. This bumper is getting cut regardless. Like, it's gotta go. I just had to cut off this, I don't know, it was like 4 inches probably, just to make sure once again that it was laying flat on the face of the design. And turned out great, actually. You guys will see here, but I'm super happy with how everything is looking so far. Ooh, yeah, so the next part I thought was pretty cool, and I kind of thought of on the fly, and it was just more or less like spending about, you know, 20-30 minutes just brainstorming of how to properly attach this top half. And you'll see that I just used a 90-degree bracket with some 10/32 screws. This is getting into the next part of the whole process of what I was building for him in regards to sports. He loves basketball. I actually built a custom backboard with a goal, like, for him. Hopefully he appreciates the design and the effort that I put into it. But regardless, I did basically just plywood that I used for the tabletop. I got the same thickness and sprayed it all gold because his favorite colors combos were black and gold. The next issue actually that I was having too, it was just, you know, these certain projects you're kind of battling your mental state and arguing with yourself essentially. You're kind of debating, but I wasn't sure whether I wanted to use this 2x4 as like a border trim. I think it was just too big and bulky. I also had leftover wood that I used to cover the exterior of the tabletop. So I thought that would be kind of nice to kind of complement that. But honestly, I just didn't have enough. It looks like a lot there, but it just was coming up probably about 6 inches short. And I jumped right into the electrical process and wiring up these headlights to make sure that they actually worked, because for me, I wanted to actually add this like really cool touch or, you know, flair. Can't believe I got that open. It was so lazy. All right, so yeah, I got some terminals from Home Depot that we're actually going to connect into. Got some speaker wire, as you can tell. And one thing too is, since we had a 12-volt battery, obviously a car battery, laying in the garage, we were able to figure out which ones were the high and the low beam of the bulb.
Okay, so we're finishing up the wire here. I'm just crimping everything, making sure it's nice and tight. And I'm going to put it on the low beam because I don't want it to be super bright, just depending on how he angles his camera and stuff like that. Just wire nut all of it together and then hook it up to the wall outlet. Next part is the center for the headlight. I need it to be able to clear and basically be recessed inside the wood so it'll look kind of flush with the grill itself. And I'm using a circular hole saw right here to kind of get through the wood. Alright, so we're going to jump back to the basketball goal just to give you all a little progress update on that. I finally decided on the trim that I wanted to do, and this was actually wood that my dad had left over in his garage that I wanted to incorporate because it was the perfect width, and I had enough of it too to do the entire border. I took the black paint that I showed earlier when I was doing the front of the grill and did the same thing right there, and it turned out great. It has such a nice glossy look to it, and it covers up any sort of blemishes, and it hides the nail holes too that you guys will see later. But I'm attaching it right now with Gorilla Glue because that Gorilla Glue is so damn strong, it's crazy. I've used it for so many things. Even though it's a little pricey, it's about $10 a tube, just keep that in mind, but guys, it holds. Okay, so my next little dilemma that I was trying to, of course, customize and build from scratch was the square space for the actual backboard itself, where you would, you know, try to bank the ball off of into the net. And this was actually the scrap wood off of the scrap wood. And I just loved how thin and flush it was off of the table saw when I sent it through. And once again, sprayed it all black. And now we're going to jump into this next day to show you guys kind of where the tabletop is at as far as progress wise. This is one of the 120 volt to 12 volt converters that you can find pretty much anywhere. This is from a thrift store. You splice the ends, wire them up into the headlights, and plug it into the wall. You're good to go. Right now I'm just showing you guys how I hid all the wires just to kind of mock up, basically to get them up out of the way so they're not all dangling all over the place. And I'll finalize and tidy everything up afterwards. And I actually tried to run these lights in parallel. That's kind of why you see that wire split there now. But when I hooked them up, it was actually dimming, and one of the lights wasn't showing properly. So I had to kind of bite the bullet and go search for another 120 to 12 volt converter. And I found one luckily at the thrift store, once again, $3. But just a little thing that, you know, you kind of have to just learn as you go, essentially. Like, I didn't plan for it to be like that, and I was hoping it would work parallel, but what can you do? Man, like, guys, let me tell you, this is sick. Like, it just has that old school feel to it, and I'm even thinking about building something like this for my little podcast, and I'm thinking about, you know, kind of creating, so stay tuned for that, guys. That's a little under the works right now, finalizing some stuff, deciding on mics that I want to get. Alright, so here I'm also adding a power surge protector so he can plug in his phone, plug in whatever that he might need to during his recordings for his podcast and stuff like that, because you can never have enough electricity on hand, readily available right next to you. So Gorilla Glue once again coming in the clutch. So we are jumping into the tabletop aspect of it now. I decided on to go with, I believe it was a 5/8 or a 3/4 inch plywood. I forget the thickness on that, but either way, I cut it down to the specific measurements that I wanted to. I think it was like 90 inches by like 27 inches wide. And here I'm actually adding kind of a thicker border to give it like a fuller look, to make it seem like it was a full thick piece of wood. And kind of gives it a nice dominance as well for a guy's podcast table as well. Alright, so I'm using the Ryobi pin nailer right here, just securing it after I put the glue on. And you always want to start on one side, work your way over, and kind of adjust the board as it might start to bow up. You kind of pull it back down, reshoot the nail again, and keep going from there. Now the full tabletop is completed as far as the paneling, and I'm pretty happy with it. I actually noticed that the plywood had a little bow in it when I finally attached everything. So I'll probably reinforce it underneath with a 2x4 to kind of bring it back up and to add strength, so when, you know, they put their elbows down or really whatever goes on top of the table, it'll be strong enough to hold and support it. Next step now is to stain the desk, and I went with like a walnut color that I thought was perfect for what they wanted. I actually did 2 coats of the stain, 2 coats of polyurethane, and real simple, you just want to douse your towel or rag in the stain and just straight lines across. Cool thing about this stain as well, it's light enough to still bring out the texture and the grooves in the wood. Yeah, this polyurethane just like made it pop so well. Like, it just gave it a nice shine. I love polyurethane. Probably could have done a 3rd coat, but I was like, 2 is good enough for now. Cool. So actually this rope light I got from Home Depot, and I was a little skeptical at first because actually you can't really tell on camera. It has a slight pinkish hue to it in person, but I think it was just maybe like warming up when I had first started looking at it, and it actually kind of gave it that true sunlight kind of yellowish color, which is exactly what I wanted to go for, just to give some more dimension to the table itself. And it looks really good once I got it all mounted properly. It adds such nice shadowing on the grill and depth to it. It's awesome. So here I'm actually just going to show you guys kind of how I mounted and secured the rope light that I got from Home Depot. I'm using like 3/8 inch little white clamps that you can find in the electrical section. Really small wood screws to hold that in without it busting through the other side of the wood. I'm putting the finishing touches here now on the wall art piece with the speakers, and since this is a metal backing plate that I use to actually have the speakers connect to magnetically. I wanted to make sure that this was really strong because it has a decent weight to it. It's probably like 15-20 pounds, and I didn't want it to fall off the wall. So I'm using just like your traditional wall anchors and picture frame mounts essentially to hold this in. And I actually had to space it off the back as well so the screw head could slide in and securely mount it. I think it looks pretty clean. I'm actually impressed with the quality of it. Yeah, this is the wall art and the backboard kind of fully completed. His podcast will be called No Cap. Alright, so this is how the tabletop looks kind of if it was at night or in a dark room per se. Fully lit up. Got the headlights on. I got the under the counter lighting turned on. Man, it looks sick. I love this so much. Really happy with how I built it. And I'm going to incorporate now some footage that I took on my phone of how it looks set up in the room itself, because at the time I didn't think to bring my camera because we were already on the road, and like he lives 45 minutes away from me, so I was like, you know what, the iPhone is just gonna have to do. So if the quality is like a huge shift, sorry about that, but this will be the final product that you guys will see in his room now. Alright guys, like I said, this is recorded on an iPhone. This room's pretty dark. It definitely needs some external lighting to kind of splash on their faces, but regardless, this is the final product. Got it in his room, mounted. We changed the license plate to kind of match with his title for the podcast. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with it, guys. It looks sick. Thank you so much for watching, y'all. Let me know if you guys like this video. I know it's a little bit different than what I'm normally used to posting. But I just had such a fun time creating it, and I wanted to record the process of how I built it. But it did take a while to record, edit, build, all of the above. But regardless, as long as I can show you guys something car related, I'm excited to shoot it and be about it. So let me know if you guys want me to continue doing stuff like this. Even then, I'm going to start just kind of vlogging more or less day in the life of other people's builds. And I do have a podcast idea on the way. So once again, thank you so much for watching, guys. Hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, let me know what y'all think about this video. I really appreciate it, and peace out.